All right, ASAPS 2018, back here with Dr. Tarofsky from Chicago, right?
Hi, how are you?
Welcome.
Hi.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank
How's
you
the
for
show
inviting
going
me,
so
yeah.
far?
It's great. I think it's, as you probably know, the biggest show on earth in aesthetic surgery, because
Absolutely.
that's the American Society of Aesthetic Plastic Surgeons, but actually it's the whole world coming.
Yeah, I've been hearing a lot more international this year. International
I think
attendees.
that there is much more exposure. Part of this is that's New York, so
Very good point.
It's attractive for people to come.
People would rather come to New York than Las Vegas.
Yeah, and it's closer to Europe, and it's.
That's true.
That's true. It's a lot of that.
Any favorite sessions that you've attended so far?
As usual, I've seen things I always say there are things I definitely not going to do, that's good, because you see things that I don't want to do that.
Sure.
But there are also a lot of things that actually are new and exciting. So
cool, exciting. How long have you been coming to the show for?
I'm here now 2 days and staying through tomorrow. So.
I mean, have you been here? How many years have you come to ASAPS?
Oh, yeah, I've been a member for 10 years, 15 years.
Awesome.
Like that.
So what was it like 10 years ago versus now? Gotten bigger?
Bigger, but also much more technology.
Okay,
the
cool.
technology is really, we used to do just plastic surgery,
Sure.
but now there's definitely the explosion of technology and non-invasive stuff.
Okay, cool. So technology, I'm glad you brought that up, because part of your practice, a big thing you focus on is the hair restoration, right?
Yes, that's actually an interesting story, because I've been practicing plastic surgery for over 20 years and never really was involved in the hair restoration until about 7-8 years ago when the technology showed up that actually changed the situation and changed the practice of hair restoration. Not only brought it to the better levels, but they also technology allows us to do it faster, better, and pretty much impossible to notice.
Sure.
This technology makes it so good that practically people are looking the same as without the hair transplant.
I love it. So tell me about what it was like 8 years ago for hair restoration, and now what you're doing now, how it works, the technology behind it.
The old school, and that is still actually quite popular in the world, is to cut out the part of the scalp in the back, then divide it into hair follicles, and then plant it, in the areas that you want to plant it. So what happened with the technology is that we are now able to harvest this hair single at a time, one hair follicle at a time. So what the change...
When you say harvest, what does that mean?
Meaning picking it up from the back of the head, where it never disappears.
Okay.
Because that's probably not known to everybody, but typically people don't lose hair in the back. They lose the hair on the top, but never in the back. So that hair is resistant to loss, and that's why we can use it for transplantation.
Gotcha.
And with these new technologies, we are able to do it without creating ugly scars in the back of the head. And it's also minimal pain. So initially it was done mostly by hand. It was kind of handheld technology, but now...
How long did that take?
That was the
Years?
problem. That was the problem, that it was actually didn't allow us to do the cases.
It wasn't scalable,
It's just as slow. So then the robot showed up, and ARTAS is an American company. It's actually made in the USA. Restoration Robotic is the name of the company. It's based in Silicon Valley, and they actually came up with a robotic hair transplantation. So I was actually one of the first to jump on the board with this, and my robot was one of the first in the world. Now there are about 400 of them.
Oh wow!
2 of them are mine. One is in Chicago, one in Poland. Actually, I'm Polish, and we decided to open the first center in Eastern Europe, also offering robotic technology.
I love it. So tell me a little bit more about, so for patients that don't know, this is an actual robotic arm that's doing the procedure. You're kind of manning the technology, but...
It's actually closest to what we call robot versus the extender, because a lot of machines that are called robots, they're actually extenders of the surgeon's hands. Actually the surgeon is operating, but the robot is just standing and doing stuff.
Yeah.
ARTAS, on the other hand, has its own mind, as to say. Actually can do the harvest and the planting. No, not the planting yet available, but soon available by itself. But of course, doctor or surgeon has to control it, and it kind of a little bit reminds the situation of autopilots on the planes.
Sure.
They can do a lot of things, but actually, the pilot has to be there.
Sure, gotcha. That's a good analogy. Awesome. So, who's an ideal candidate for that?
Well,
not me, right? I have nothing.
You will be a good candidate.
Really?
Yeah, we can change your life.
Okay. Well, I'll call you in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, no, this is actually almost anybody can be a candidate. The worst cases are actually cases that are done before.
Yeah.
You know, people who had the bad experience with the scars and they have no hair available to use, and we can then go into the body hair and stuff. But that actually robot cannot do that. But by hand we can do that. But anybody who lost the hair is a potential candidate. You know, so it's like, and it's also not only men but women. And actually, interesting part that we were just talking about it yesterday with another radio station is that also the new market, so to say, is transgender people. You know, patients who changing from male to female or female to male because they either want more hair or less hair. So, So then we can create the beards for the.
So you can do facial as well.
Yeah, you can do facial. And actually, that's another market that opened up over the last few years that everybody wants to look like you.
Yeah,
as a beard.
Maybe I can fill out my beard here. It's a little thin.
Yeah,
nice.
It's actually that becomes something that we do quite often. And,
beautiful.
And the robot still helping us with the harvest of the hair, but planting, of course, is by hand. But robot still. And what's the advantage of robot? Because robot has many advantages, but one of them is that is a very fast machine. It can harvest up to 1,000 an hour of hair follicles. So you can imagine it's like really fast.
Which would have taken you 8 years ago? Would it?
By hand, if you have an experienced person, you can maybe harvest 200, 300. I am talking to somebody who's really, really experienced in that. Otherwise, it would take much longer. So there are two things about it. One is that it allows us to do large cases, just like you would need a lot of hair transplanted. So that can be possible with the robot. And the robot also has the advantage that actually can see existing hair. So if somebody has still existing hair and just thinning, it can avoid them, so it preserves the existing hair better. And this actually making size is 3,000 per hour. So it's actually, you can imagine, it's just going very, very fast. Yeah. So
cool.
So and on top, of course, it's precise and selects better hair, better. So there are a lot of advantages of that technology that actually is impossible with a human eye or hand coordination.
Sure.
And one thing I like about the robot, it doesn't get tired.
Yeah. Right.
If it's the first hair or 3,000 hair, it's the same for the robot.
That's huge. That's huge. That's awesome. All right, last question then. So tell me about, outside of obviously having a full head of hair from using this or getting this treatment, what results are men and women feeling from being able to get their hair back?
I think that was one thing that I was afraid of when we were first starting, because I have a busy aesthetic practice and you don't want to ruin that by creating procedure that has a lot of problems and stuff like this. So when I was studying, I was like, well, we're going to create all this unhappy men, maybe potentially, but I have to say that that was actually the best thing that happened is that it's a very successful procedure. It's like the satisfaction rate and is almost 100%, if not very close to that. Yeah. And it's really life changing. For a lot of men who thought that just like you that
I wish I knew. I wish this was around 8 years ago.
Yeah, but it's like it's interesting that a lot of men like you shave and they fine and they feel fine, but if you offer them something else, they go like, wow, this is great. This
I think for so long, because I remember, I was bald at 22, but I remember doing the research, because at 22, you're having an identity crisis about losing your hair. And at the time, there was just nothing I felt confident about, like with seeing real results. I never saw anything that was like, okay, this doesn't really look real, but it seems like now it's totally changed.
You probably made a good decision, because at that time, you probably end up with the big scars on your head.
Yeah.
And you would never shave, because if you shave, you would expose them. So this people that went through these procedures are actually very unhappy about it later if things don't work out for them, and that's why I think it's talking about this when it happened to you when you were 20 something. In the past, we had kind of recommendation of not doing this that early, because you wouldn't know what happens later. But now I have no problem operating on a 22, 23-year-old person, because we know we can hide the scars, and that's not an issue. And of course, at that age, like you said, they want to look good. So it's actually opened up all this market for the young people. So.
Beautiful. I love it. Well, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.